بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear students of Communication and Public Relations Management, today inshallah we will continue chapter number 1, which is titled by Defining Public Relations. The previous lecture we covered the following topics: the prominence or the importance of public relations, whether in numbers or in respect, and also we discussed different definitions of public relations. Also we talk about the public relation as a management interpreter or as a public interpreter, and today inshallah we will continue talking about the different publics of public relations, the main functions of public relations, and also the course of SPEN. So let's start from slide 28, the publics of public relations. Practitioners or public relation practitioners must communicate with many different publics at once. So public relation practitioners not dealing with one public, and they are not dealing only with the customers. As we said before, that the marketing department is responsible and focusing on dealing with customers' needs and wants, while public relation is dealing with many publics, so they deal with many different publics such as government, customers, press agencies, suppliers, employees. Okay, so each public has its own special needs, media habits, and communication requirements. So if I don't have a variety of skills as a public relation person, I will not able to deal with my publics. Okay, we have a variety of publics, different publics, and each public has its own wants. They have their own needs, and the media or their communication requirements. Okay, so each public has its own requirements and their own habits. So the public relation practitioners should know how to deal with them, how to satisfy their wants, and also to communicate with them. Technology has created a complex web of interrelationships between publics. So one of the main tools used to facilitate public relation functions is using technology in order to send and transmit the messages needed for those publics. The publics of public relations, here in this slide they classified them into internal and external publics. The internal publics in general, here we focused on the employees who worked within the organization, so we talk about here a formal relationship. On the other hand, once we talk about the external publics, here we talk about in an informal relationship between the organization and its external publics. Okay, so internally, managers must deal directly with various levels of subordinates, as well as with the cross relationships that arise when subordinates interact with one another. So again, the managers deal with directly with various levels of subordinates. This is a type of downward communication when the managers give a commands or orders for their subordinates according to the hierarchy or the organizational chart, as well as with a cross relationship. Cross relationships, here we mean a type of coordination among the departments or among the employees or the supervisors or the managers who's working on the same level. So the cross relationships means not only to send orders or commands to subordinates, also we have an interrelationship among the employees or managers from the same levels. Okay, again, the internal with an internal publics, the type of communication here is formal. While externally, managers must deal with a system that includes government regulatory agencies, labor unions, subcontractors, consumer groups, and many other independent but often related to the organization. Okay, so here we have different external groups and publics that public relation practitioners deal with, such as the government or the government regulatory agencies, labor unions, subcontractors, consumer groups, and other groups whose related and affect the organization. Continue talking about the publics of public relations. Definitions differ on what constitutes a public. One time another definition states that publics arises when a group of people are. So here we want to talk about how to create or arise publics. Okay, first of all, publics arises when a group of people faces a similar indeterminate situation. Okay, so group of people who have the same situation or the same issue or face the same problem, here we have a public. Okay, the second one recognizes what is indeterminate and problematic in that situation and organizes to do something about this problem. Okay, so the public have the same or face the same situation, the same problem, and the organization should recognize this problem and the situation and collect the needed information to deal with it and organize it to solve or to do something toward this problem. Ways to view our publics. Here we have different classification to the publics, whether internal publics or external publics, primary and secondary or marginal publics, traditional or future publics, proponents or opponents, and uncommitted publics. And we will talk about each of them in more details in the next slides. The first classification of publics, whether internal or external publics. Internal publics are inside the organization. As we said before, here we're dealing with the employees within the organizations, with the managers or the supervisors of the departments, the stockholders, clerks, and so on. So internal publics are inside the organization: supervisors, clerks, managers, stockholders, and the board of directors. While the external publics are those not directly connected with the organization, such as the government, the press, educators, customers, suppliers, and the community. Okay, and again, as we said before, that in the internal publics, here we have to deal with those employees or those managers formally according to the organizational chart, while dealing with the external publics is always informally because they are not connected or not directly connected with our organization, but they are affected the organization by any way, such as press or the government, educator, customers, suppliers, and so on. So this is the first classification of publics. The second one, primary, secondary, and marginal publics. So what is the primary publics? Primary publics can most help or hinder the organization's effort. Okay, so the primary publics, they are the publics who affect us directly. So those publics, they work as an assistance or hinders for our objectives within the organizations. So again, the primary publics can most help or hinder the organization's efforts. They are directly affect our job, they are directly affect our objectives, and also they are work as an assistance for our organization. The secondary publics, they are less important, and the marginal publics are the least important for all. Okay, secondary publics, they are less important, but also we cannot neglect them because they affect our organization and achieving our objectives. And the last one is the marginal publics, who's have the least important for all. Okay, فاحنا وكأنه تدرج هرمي البرايمري publics اللي هو له تأثير مباشر وكبير جدا على المنظمة، اللي بيساعد المنظمة بشكل كبير في انها تحقق اهدافها. بعد هيك بيجوا ناس اقل اهمية اللي هم السكندري publics، لكن لازم ناخذهم بعين الاعتبار، لا نلغي وجودهم، لهم اهمية ولهم تأثير ايضا على المنظمة. و finally we have the marginal publics. المارجنال publics اللي هم الأقل وأقل أهمية بالنسبة للمنظمة. طيب أعطيني example. For example, members of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors who regulate banks would be primary publics, whereas legislators and the general public are secondary. Again, members of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors who regulate banks would be the primary publics. طيب ال Federal Reserve Board of Governors اللي هم خلينا نحكي عنهم عنا مثلا في قطاع غزة بيمثلوا اللي هو سلطة النقد، تمام، اللي هو الفيدرال ريزيرف المسؤول عن الرولز والريجوليشنز اللي حيعطيها للبنك وانه ينظم العملية والتعاملات البنكية. So the Federal Reserve affects banks system more than other publics because it is impose several rules and regulations in order to organize its work and its system. فبالتالي أنا حاعتبره primary publics for a bank, whereas legislators and the general public are secondary. Okay, legislators and general publics are not affect the banks directly, so they are considered as a secondary public. تمام. legislators و general public صحيح كمان إلهم يعني تأثير على البانكس، لكن مش بالدرجة الكبيرة مثل اللي هو سلطة النقد، فبالتالي أنا بصنفهم ضمن اللي هو السكندري publics. طيب مين ممكن نحط كمثال على المارجنال publics؟ ممكن نحكي السبلايرز للماتيريالز بالنسبة للبنك، هذول يعتبروا أقل أهمية، فكل ما بعدنا في الأهمية كل ما بيكون التصنيف أقل بالنسبة للببلكس، إلا أنه لازم على المنظمة taking into its consideration all type of publics وتأخذ أهمية كل منهم على حدة. طيب another classification of publics is traditional and future. Employees and current customers are traditional publics, while students and potential customers are future one. فبالتالي the traditional publics here such as employees and the current or the existing customers. And any potential publics can be classified as a future publics, whether a potential supplier, potential government, and so on. So here we have students and potential customers, or a potential government, potential agency. This is a future ones. Today a firm's publics range from women to minorities to senior citizens. Each might be important to the future success of the organization. Another classification and the last classifications of publics, proponents, opponents, and the uncommitted one. An organization must deal differently with those who support it and those who oppose it. So organizations should not focus on opponent publics because it is very difficult to change their opinions about the organization. Okay, فهنا رأي الكاتب بيحكي إنه we have to deal with each of them but differently with the opponent and the proponent. لكن the proponent or عفوا the opponent publics اللي هم الناس اللي صعب إنه إحنا نغير وجهة نظرهم ناحية المنظمة، فبالتالي إحنا مش عايزين إنه إحنا يعني to waste our time to change their opinions لأنه عندهم فكر معين ضد المنظمة، هم عاملين ك enemies for the organization. So again, the organization should not focus on opponent publics because it is very difficult to change their opinion about our organization. On the other hand side, for supporters and the proponents, communications that reinforce beliefs may be in order. So you have to give those supporters and send them messages to reinforce their beliefs about our organization, about the image of the organization, and not to neglect them because they are simply guaranteed. مش لأنه أنا ضامنهم أنهم معانا وأنهم يعني من الناس الداعمين للمنظمة فبالتالي أنه أنا أتجاهلهم. بالعكس المفروض أنه إحنا نعزز عندهم الأفكار الموجودة بدرجة أكبر يعني حتى يبقوا من اللي هم supporters for the organization. But changing the opinions of skeptics call for strong. You have to send strong messages, persuasive communication. So dealing with others, you have to choose a persuasive communication to change their opinions. While with the supporters and the proponents, you have to send the messages to reinforce their beliefs. Often in politics, the uncommitted public is crucial. So again, publics are classified into internal or external publics, primary, secondary, and marginal publics, traditional or future publics, the opponents, and the uncommitted publics. And now we wanted to talk about the functions of public relations, and we have a lot of functions related to public relations. There are numerous: the writing function, media relations, planning, counseling, researching, publicity, marketing, communications, community relations, consumer relations, employee relations. So as you see here, we have different relations. So public relations are responsible to build mutual relationship with different publics, such as community, consumer, employees, the government, and investors. And special public relations, public affairs and issues, social media, interfaces. And now we wanted to talk about each of them in more detail. The first function of public relations, writing skills. You have to know how to write speeches, brochures, and to be responsible on release news about the organization. Also public relation is responsible for organizational website. Okay, so public relation practitioners should have to know how to write and have writing skills. The fundamental public relation skill with written vehicles, from news releases to speeches and from brochures to advertisement, falling within the field's purview. فبالتالي الببليك ريليشن هو ممثل المنظمة المتحدث عن المنظمة، فبالتالي المفروض انه يكون عنده مهارات الكتابة، تحرير بعض الأخبار، انه يمسك الموقع الخاص بالشركة، ينزل عليه الأخبار طبعا بطريقة تكون سليمة، حتى أنه يكتب اللي هي الكلمات اللي حابب أنه يوجهها للبابليكس، فبالتالي لازم تكون عنده مهارات عالية في الكتابة والتحرير. The second one, or the second function of public relation, media relations. Dealing with the press is another frontline public relations function. Public relation practitioners should create and build a close relationship with the mass media, so you can save a lot of money, effort, if you have a good relationship with those media. البابليك ريليشن أكيد لازم تكون له علاقات جيدة مع البريس، مع الماس ميديا، لأنه هو المسؤول عن توجيه اللي هو المسجز للبابليكس، فبالتالي كل ما كانت علاقاته أكبر معها فبالتالي هو حيوفر على نفسه الكثير من المال والجهد طبعا لنفسه وللمنظمة. Another function related to public relation, planning. طبعا planning for special events related to the organization, media events, management functions as in general, and the like. The fourth one, counseling in dealing with management and its transactions with key publics. The fourth or the fifth functions of public relation, researching. Once we talk about research, here we are talking about public opinions. And why public relations conducting a research? We need a research to diagnose the problems related to publics, or the issues related to publics, attitudes and opinions about our company. So public relation practitioners should have the ability to conduct researches in order to collect information about the issues, the problems with publics, diagnose the problems which is related to publics, whether their attitudes or opinions about our company. وبعد هيك طبعا يعملها transferring for the top management أو المانجمنت على أساس أنهم ياخدوا decision المناسب. So researching of attitudes and opinions that influence behaviors and beliefs. The sixth function of public relation, publicity. The marketing related function, most commonly misunderstood as the only function of public relations, generating positive publicity for a client or employer. Publicity, one of the main reasons to establish a public relation department within any organization is to build a good image about the organization. Okay, فبالتالي publicity تعتبر one of the main function of public relation. Why? لأنه هذا department, public relation department, هو يعني الأساس في وجوده إنه يبني صورة إيجابية أو جيدة عن المنظمة في ذهن البابليكس. Okay. Also public relation practitioners or the public relation department have to create a positive publicity or a positive image to our clients or to our employers. And here we want to differentiate between clients and employer. Sometimes public relation have their own organization, have their own agency outside the organization, our organization, who help or assist other organizations, whether private organization or NGOs. So in this case, those organizations اللي هم private and NGOs represents a clients for public relation organization. Again, public relation generating positive publicity for a client. مين هم الكلاينت بالنسبة للpublic relation department؟ أحيانا الببليك ريليشنز ممكن ما يكونوا بيشتغلوا كديبارتمنت داخل المنظمة، ممكن تكون لهم وكالات أو منظمات خارج المنظمة متخصصة في عمل العلاقات العامة، بتلجأ إلها بعض المنظمات مثل المنظمات الخاصة والمنظمات الحكومية، المنظمات الأهلية، على أساس أنها تساعدها في توجيه الرسائل للبابليكس الخاصة فيهم. فبالتالي هذه المنظمات اللي هم البرايفت والNGOs اللي لجأت public relation organizations which is outside the organization تعتبر كclient بالنسبة لهم. فبالتالي يفترض أنه those public relation organizations build and generate positive publicity for those clients. طبعا or employer, if public relation persons or practitioners or departments working within the organization, so I have to build a positive publicity for my employer about the organization. ولكن إذا كان public relation practitioners أو department موجود داخل المنظمة، فبالتالي يفترض كوظيفة أساسية لهذول public relations إنهم يبنوا positive publicity for their employer about the organization. Okay, so again, publicity, the marketing related function, most commonly misunderstood as the only function of public relation, generating positive publicity for a client or employer. The seventh function of public relations, marketing communications. As we said before that, marketing, or as you learned before, that marketing focusing on communications, and communications here means a promotion, and this represents the main function of public relation, which considered as a promotional tool. Okay, so marketing communication such as creating brochures, sales literature, meeting displays and promotion. فإحنا إذا بدنا نحكي ببساطة هي إيش العلاقة ما بين public relation and marketing، إحنا حكينا إنه public relation is responsible for promoting، أو يعني الوظيفة كأحد الوظائف الأساسية هو يعتبر ك promotion tools. Okay, and the promotion is a tool of marketing. Okay, فبالتالي marketing or the public relation they have to deal with communications with their publics or with their consumers. So again, marketing communications such as creating brochures, sales literature, meeting displays and promotion. The eighth function of public relation, community relations, positively putting forth the organization's message and image within the community. So one of the major functions of public relation practitioners or departments is to build a good relationship with community. So public relations or the public relation practitioners responsible to build a good image about our organization for their community. Consumer relations, interfacing with consumers through written and verbal communication. فكمان يفترض يكون في عندي كواحدة من البابليكس أصلا اللي أنا بتعامل معاهم ضمن البابليك ريليشنز ديبارتمنت اللي هم الكونسيومرز or البابليكس. So we can deal with them whether sending or transmitting written or verbal communication. The ninth function of public relation, employee relations. So public relations also responsible to build a close relationship between employees and between the employees and their managers, or between the employees and management, communicating with all important internal publics of the organization with all important publics, whether the clerks, subordinates, employees, managers, and so on. The 10th function of public relation, government affairs. Any company or any organization should comply with government's rules, regulations, in order to build an effective lobby for it. So government affairs dealing with legislators, regulators, and local or state and federal officials. So the government also considered as one of the main publics which is affecting the organization, and we have to build a good relationship with it. Investor relations, communicating with stockholders and those who advise them. Investor relations, public relations also should communicating with stockholders, those persons who purchase stock within the organization, and those who advise them. So public relations should communicate with stockholders and also the persons or the organizations who advise those stockholders, such as financial institutions, consultants, the brokers, and so on. I think we can stop here for this lecture. Thank you for your listening and good luck.